DC Studios is officially kicking off its live-action version of the DCU with Superman this year. Now, of course, we already had Creature Commandos, and there's a lot to look forward to. So in this video, we are taking a deep dive into every project, where it's at, what its outlook is like, and also all those projects that may or may not have been canceled, and what's coming out that's in the rumor stage or has been semi-teased by the producers. So let's get to all of this and more. So since I already mentioned Creature Commandos in the opening, I figure it's probably a good point to start, as this is the start of the universe. Now, of course, there's a couple caveats with this that I have to bring up before we get to the upcoming project. So Creature Commandos is, of course, a sequel, per se, to The Suicide Squad and, of course, Peacemaker Season 1. But what events of those projects are canon is sort of up to loose debate as they're picking and choosing. So of course we gotta kick this off with the first live action project that's coming at us, aka James Gunn's upcoming Superman reboot. This is a brand new from the ground reboot of the Superman world and mythos. There's going to be some creative liberties and changes made to what people have come to sort of expect as the version of Superman. With the film releasing this July, it of course is also not only going to feature Superman, much like many other reboots have, and it's not going to be in a standalone universe. Instead, right from the start, we are getting introduced into a world where superheroes such as Green Lantern already exist. We got a bit to go till we see this film for ourselves, but of course, it's not just about Superman, as they are also bringing in characters from Creature Commandos, most notably Rick Flag Sr., who will be in Superman to make that connection to Creature Commandos. After Superman, we are getting right into Peacemaker Season 2. Now, this is an interesting one, as Season 1 is a DCEU project, and it's considered loose canon. Season 2 will pick up after the events of Season 1, but the whole Justice League scenario and how they show up will be addressed in the series, as that's not canon. Now, in The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker ends the life of Rick Flag Jr., and hey, wouldn't you know it, Rick Flag Sr., his father, will also be a crucial part of Season 2. Of course, still played by actor Frank Grillo. Peacemaker Season 2 is said to be a lot more violent and also a lot more connected to the DC Universe. Naturally, I think we're expecting quite a few more cameos and appearances in here from other DC characters, and a couple surprises, but that's all for when we get to see it later this year. Now, from the darkness and violence of Peacemaker all the way to the brighter side of the DC Universe, let's talk about Lanterns, a reboot of Green Lantern that is the fourth attempt since the failed film to get these characters back in live action. Lanterns is expected to premiere sometime in early 2026. Unfortunately, some of the news we found out about it is the fact that due to this needing to be a lower budget series, do not expect to see a lot of Green Lantern action, do not expect to see a lot of space cop elements, which are very dominant in the comics, and that this story will set the sort of groundwork for what we're getting down the road in the Chapter 1 payoff, aka Gods and Monsters. Lanterns is set to be a lot more in line with like your typical procedural crime drama involving cops, but of course they're space cops and they got some rings that have powers, so that will naturally come into play. After the premiere of Lanterns, we are looking forward to July of 26 with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Now, this is based on the comic book of the very same name. It is a story that will largely be contained to an alien planet, having very little to do with Earth outside of a few scenes, and of course, it's dealing with the likes of Supergirl and how she's tackling a specific thing I don't want to get into due to spoilers. We also know that Superman himself will briefly appear in this film, and that Supergirl has been rumored to appear in Superman at the end of his film to sort of add the connective tissue. So we just gotta wait and see if that's true. And speaking of Supergirl, let's talk about Aquaman, because Jason Momoa is Aquaman no more, as he's joined Supergirl as the intergalactic bounty hunter Lobo. A role he was literally born to play, and it's going to be just about perfect. Now, of course, this is not the first time we are seeing Lobo in live action, as he appeared in the short-lived series Krypton, but rumors are suggesting that if audiences take to Jason Momoa's version of Lobo enough, and that they want more, that we could be seeing Lobo get his own standalone project. Whether or not that is a film or a TV series, we don't know, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Next up is Waller. This was announced right there with the initial announcement of James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over the DC universe. The series is supposed to be a follow-up of Peacemaker and, of course, Creature Commandos, and focus on what exactly is Amanda Waller up to now, that sort of everything she's been involved with hasn't really worked out for her. Last we knew, the project is still in development, and it's said to connect deeply to some of the big plans that they have in motion for future projects, such as Batman and possibly even the Bat family as a whole. But we are not done with Waller yet, as she will of course be appearing, by all accounts, in Creature Commandos Season 2, which has been greenlit and is going to be, by all accounts, going into production a lot faster than the first season, because they already know what they're doing, the animation flow, and how everything works. And from the reports we've had so far, this could be making it out in time for a mid to late 2026. And considering how long animation takes these days, that's literally right around the corner. But hey, do you find yourself saying, man, I can't wait that long for more anti-establishment figures and people that go out on their own, which are a giant mashup of random characters that could never get along? Good news, because The Authority is a project that was announced right there when they announced the DCU. The Authority will focus on a ragtag group of more or less nobodies, let's put them that way. And these guys aren't exactly about following the orders, and more like a group that's been put together due to circumstances, and they do not like superheroes. The best way to explain this is the boys in the DC universe. And that's very fitting in my opinion, because the character Midnighter is really like the star of this team and the concept, and he's expected to have a major role, but also one of the characters from this, the Engineer, is appearing in Superman. So they are already planting the seeds and setting the stage for this project. Next up, let's talk about going back to the monsters parts of Gods and Monsters, because Swamp Thing is coming at us from director James Mangold, who of course directed Logan and the last Indiana Jones film. From everything we've heard and what's been confirmed, this is supposed to be a lot more horror-like in nature and far less super-heroic. And everything that's been said, we know that this is going to be a largely standalone project. So don't expect characters like Superman or Batman or anybody else to be showing up tag teaming with Swamp Thing. Currently, with the lineup that we have, it's rumored that this project could be making its way to us sometime in 2027. But believe it or not, this is not the only monster that's getting his own standalone film project, as there's another one. Because believe it or not, before we get Batman, we are getting the Batman villain Clayface with his own standalone film coming at us from writer Mike Flanagan. This is going to be a R-rated horror film that's been compared to the likes of The Fly, aka a Cronenberg monster that's going to absolutely disgust you. We know very little about this project outside of the fact that it is set in the DCU. Now, with that in mind, this automatically means that there's a chance that this is the very same Clayface that we saw in Creature Commandos. So the connective tissue here is honestly pretty exciting, and the prospect of what happens with this, I'm all in. And since we're on the Gotham front, let's talk about Batman Brave and the Bold. This was the Batman reboot that was announced by James Gunn. And of course, right then and there, they confirmed the director of The Flash, Andy Muschietti, would be directing this film. Now, the interesting thing about Batman Brave and the Bold is the fact that this film will not just focus on Batman, it's in fact going to include the entire Bat family. from Batgirl to Nightwing to reportedly Batwoman, and also a brand new Robin, aka Damian Wayne, who is the 10 to 15-year-old son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul. We've already seen Batman and Creature Commandos, and this is expected to be about 15 to 20 years into Batman's career, meaning that there is no origin story here. Instead, he's a very well-seasoned Batman, and, well, we've never really gotten that in his own film, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering why I'm not stating any dates like I do with the Marvel version of this. That's because we don't even have an outline or tentative release dates for many of these projects. So that's why they're just kind of in a random order and just in general what's coming out and what's been confirmed. So with that out of the way, let's talk more about the Bat family, as a Teen Titans film is in development, and according to all the reports we currently have on the status of the Titans, this will be a live-action reboot, but we don't know if it's a film or a TV series. Last we heard, it's from the writer of Supergirl, as they absolutely loved that script, and that it's going to be a film, so it's not going to be like the last iteration of Teen Titans, which was live-action. This will reportedly feature the very same team that we've seen in the Teen Titans cartoon, so, you know, the known commodity, if you will. And we don't know which Robin is going to be in it. There's rumors it could be Damian, but a lot of people are expecting one of the other Robins, and probably not Nightwing. So once you do the math, you probably know which one I'm talking about. Because Nightwing is allegedly getting his own project finally. Now, they've been trying to get a Nightwing project off the ground since literally 2003. But DC Comics and a lot of people that work there are not fans of Dick Grayson, so he's kind of been sidelined every single chance they got, and the closest we got was a sequel that at one point was in discussion for The Dark Knight Rises, aka Chris Nolan's trilogy, but that never materialized. So it looks like we're finally going to be seeing Dick Grayson, and according to reports, he will be operating in his very own city, aka Bloodhaven. Reports also suggest that this will take place after Brave and the Bold, and that the fallout of that film with the Bat family is sort of how they spin him leaving for Bloodhaven and not really working with Batman, and that way they can use that film as a sort of vehicle to bring us more of the Bat family. So Nightwing being one of these honestly isn't too surprising. If I was to wager a bet, I would say TV series rather than an actual film. And speaking of Gotham, let's talk about crime, because the Penguin owned it when he won that Golden Globe. And we know that DC Studios is actively working on trying to figure out if they want to do a Penguin Season 2. By all accounts, they do, and they are very high on moving forward with more of this character and more in that world. Speaking of that world, we still allegedly got at least another 1 or 2 shows developing alongside of Penguin and the Batman Part 2. Reportedly Catwoman, but it can't be confirmed, a potential Arkham series that was greenlit, cancelled, re-greenlit, and re-cancelled, and now we don't know where it's at, and a Gotham PD series that went through massive changes and we don't know the status of it. So at least 2 other projects are in development for a total of minimum of 3 in the Batman universe. But hey, since we are talking about Batman, let's just talk about the Batman Part 2. Will he join the DCU? Won't he? Well, the latest update was no, he won't. And the Batman Part 2 will remain a standalone sequel following the events of Penguin and Batman. Now, of course, this project was unfortunately delayed all the way into 2027, with rumors that more delays could happen. Reportedly, they're interested in doing Penguin Season 2 after the Batman Part 2, as Oswald Cobblepot will be appearing in both Batman sequels, Part 2 and Part 3, so I guess Part 3 is also confirmed in development, so add that to the list. Speaking of adding it to the list, add J.J. Abrams' Superman reboot to the list, as that's still in active development, but according to all the reports, they're waiting to finish up James Gunn's Superman before they move forward. This is a completely different take on Superman, as it's going to be starring a black actor in the 1930s. It's a period piece that's steeped in the racism at the time, and a complete reinvention of everything we know about Superman. This is not to be confused with the third Superman project, which is allegedly still in development, and the last update we had from the man that was reportedly going to produce it and possibly star in it, aka Michael B. Jordan, is that the project is much like J.J. Abrams' Superman, standing on its own right now, waiting for Superman to wrap up. But this would essentially be a Earth 2 Superman, where, again, it's completely disconnected, and this time we're following the character of Val Zod. Now, what happens with both of these Superman projects, who really knows? They could just get canceled if Superman is a big enough success, or even if it is, they could just greenlight them to offer different views into the DC world, as Elseworld tales exist, and they keep saying we're going to get a lot more Elseworld tales. But for now, let's jump back to technically Gotham, I guess, because a team-up film featuring Deathstroke and the character of Bane that might actually just be a Deathstroke project that features other DC characters is in development. We know this as multiple big trades have also confirmed it. Now, of course, this character trying to get the live-action treatment is nothing surprising. There was supposed to be a DCEU project starring Joe Manganiello that never materialized and it was cancelled. The character appeared on Arrow and also was a mainstay in Season 2 of Titans, but of course that's not his own project. But it sounds like we are finally going to see a standalone Deathstroke project, and there's rumors that it's coming after Brave and the Bold, as they would like to get Batman involved, which honestly would make some sense. So Deathstroke is happening by all accounts. Now, if you're excited for more grittiness like Deathstroke, let's take a trip back through time to World War II and Sgt. Rock. And wouldn't you know it, Sgt. Rock has already appeared in the DCU in Creature Commandos working with G.I. Robot. The role of Sgt. Rock is rumored to be going to the one and only former James Bond, Daniel Craig, and this is supposed to be a serious war film that's going to show us a different side of the DC universe. Now, rumors have suggested that characters like G.I. Robot will appear in this, which would make sense as he appears with G.I. Robot on the front lines. But also that this film, they want it to be a real World War II film. And they got, by all accounts, a serious team that's writing and directing this. So stay tuned for Sgt. Rock, which has been in development, believe it or not, since the late 70s. Jumping to the present, maybe, DC Studios' Elseworld Dynamic Duo is a film that's coming out from WB Animation. This will be a hybrid CG, claymation, different type of art style that we've never really seen before, and the film will focus on the dynamic duo of two Robins teaming up. Very little is known about this project. It is not in continuity with the DCU or the Batverse starring Robert Pattinson, so this is another Elseworld tale that doesn't really have much connective tissue to anything. Next up, let's go to the future and then to the past, because Booster Gold is coming at us as a series on HBO Max. Now, very little has been said about this series. We know almost nothing outside of the fact that it sounds like Kumail Nanjiani will be starring as Booster Gold, which honestly, in my opinion, is a pretty great casting. He's comedic and he can do it, but again, we gotta wait and see. The thing with this one is, much like Lanterns, this is going to have to be toned down, so do not expect him flying around doing all sorts of superhero shenanigans. I'm expecting a lot more of, hey, he just got whipped back through time and now he's got to find his footing, and also maybe he's got to try to, rescue his best friend. Who's that, you might ask? Blue Beetle. Now, okay, to be fair, it's not this Blue Beetle, it's Ted Kord, this is Jaime Reyes, but they have confirmed that Blue Beetle will return, the same actor, and they're just going to go forward with it. So chances are that Blue Beetle is more or less loose canon, just like the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1. And if you've seen Blue Beetle, and I know many people didn't because nobody talks about it but me and like my best friend, you would know that it's a tremendous film, and it already exists in what seems like its own pocket universe, so it's easy to make it canon. And what's more important about this is the fact that the actor who plays Jaime has confirmed that the leaks surrounding a sequel are true. We are getting a Blue Beetle sequel, but this time it will be an animated HBO Max series, so you can add that to the official list. But we are not done yet, because we gotta talk about Paradise Lost. This is a from the ground, built up as a brand new take on the world of Wonder Woman and Themyscira, aka the island that the Amazonians live on. From what they have stated, this is essentially all-women Game of Thrones. It's going to be brutal. It's going to take us into this aspect of Wonder Woman's world that we don't know and have never before seen, and that they're looking to make sure that this is on the same quality as some of the best HBO shows ever. So I'm already in, and I cannot wait to see what exactly they have on offer here. Believe it or not, we're still not done, as we got to talk about Constantine 2. Yes, a sequel to the critically panned and hated Constantine starring Keanu Reeves from the early 2000s is still getting a sequel. They have been actively working on it for a few years, and by all accounts, this is still going to be another Elseworld tale. Now, whether or not it is a direct sequel to the first film, or more or less a softish reboot like Ghost Rider 2 compared to Ghost Rider 1, or I should say Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which was like a loose continuation, remains to be seen. Whatever the case is, Keanu Reeves is in high demand now, so this project happening looks really, really likely. In my opinion, why not just add Constantine to the end of Swamp Thing and then make Swamp Thing have a cameo in Constantine, thus giving us a brand new take on the character in the DCU and also bringing along Keanu Reeves, who will pull in numbers. Don't call it Constantine 2, call it Hellblazer, and there you go. Fresh reboot, and nobody has to be reminded of the terrible 2000s film. Now, I know what you're saying, but Armin, there's not enough Batman from DC, come on. Well, don't worry about that, as DC Studios and Amazon has you covered, as we are getting a brand new take on the Batman universe courtesy of Amazon, which of course will be delivering something that looks unique. I do not like this art style at all, so I will not be watching this, but if you're excited, more power to you. Okay, now it's time to get off the Batman train. Yeah, I lied. Let's talk about Cape Crusader, Season 2, which has been confirmed to be in development at Amazon, and there's already rumors about a potential Season 3 and 4 renewal coming at us. If you haven't seen this, it is a throwback to Batman, and the way they pitched it was that this is Batman the Animated Series that they always wanted to make but never could. It is definitely a new take on Batman that's built on like retro futurism in a way. It's hard to explain. Again, if you've seen the first season, chances are you're excited for the second one, so that's still coming at us. Something that everybody seems to have forgotten, but not me, because that's not how my brain works. DC Supergirl's Superhero High. That's a series that is still in development on Max. Now, there's been a couple different titles. There's Superhero High, DC Superhero High, Supergirl, and the Superheroes. I mean, there's a couple titles. Whatever it is, it's supposed to be targeted at girls, and it's a lot more in line with a child-friendly cartoon. Let's put it that way. I think that's the best way to put it. Definitely, this is not the next big adult series that people might be looking for. Another project a lot of people are looking forward to is the inevitable arrival of Static Shock, aka Static. They've been trying to get this off the ground with live action for the better part of the last decade. The last time, they were pretty far ahead, but everything at WB was sold to Discovery, and they put a dead stop to it. We haven't heard much since, but allegedly, James Gunn is very high on bringing Static into the DC universe, and this might be one of the projects we get, allegedly, before the end of the decade. I will believe it when I see it, because we've heard about Static multiple times and nothing's happened. So that's it, everybody. That is every project that is currently in development at various stages for DC Studios and the DCU and the Elseworld. Obviously, this is a far cry from, I think, what people expected, as a lot of people always look at the MCU and realize they got like 80 projects in development. The DC universe is getting restarted, and it's a slow start, but given another 5 years, I think we're going to have a clear picture, and a lot of these projects will have materialized, and we're going to be looking at a brand new day for DC. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and have a good one. thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.